For defending Grandpa after my parents excluded him from our Christmas family photo? I'm 43, and in my family, I was the daughter who got accused of starting drama whenever I asked people to stop being cruel. I was also the granddaughter who still cut Grandpa Arthur's food into smaller pieces without making a show of it, kept a folded blanket in my car because his legs got cold, and knew exactly how he liked his coffee when everyone else only remembered him when money was mentioned. I lived close enough to him that I became the easy call when someone forgot to pick up a prescription, when his phone needed charging, when his lamp switch stopped working, or when he wanted soup from the place he liked but nobody else wanted to drive. I had my own life, my own bills, and my own tired evenings, but Grandpa never made me feel like helping him was a trap. He said thank you. He remembered who showed up. In our family, that counted for more than anyone wanted to admit. My mother, Elaine, was Grandpa Arthur's oldest daughter, and she had built her whole personality around being the one who handled things. She liked words like practical, organized, and appropriate. What she meant was controlled. My father, Frank, enforced whatever version of reality made my mother look good. My older sister, Lena, was the golden child who could insult you with a smile and then ask why you were so sensitive. Her husband, Cal, always sounded reasonable until you listened closely enough to hear the greed underneath. Then there was Aunt Denise, my mother's younger sister, who floated through conflict like a ghost. She saw everything, said nothing, and called it staying neutral. My nephew Tyler was 24 and still wanted to believe the adults were decent people having normal disagreements. I think part of me wanted to believe that too, even at my age. In my family, the person who said the cruel thing was rarely the problem. The person who reacted to it was. If my mother snapped, she was stressed. If my father raised his voice, he was old-fashioned. If Lena made a dig, it was just a joke. If I asked anyone to stop, suddenly I was ruining the holiday. Grandpa Arthur was the only person who never bought that. He was not a saint. He could be stubborn, sharp, and impossible to convince once he had made up his mind. But he listened. When I was younger and my parents demanded an apology from me just to keep the peace, Grandpa would wait until everyone left the room, sit beside me and say, "Peace that costs your dignity is just quiet." Another time, after Lena told everyone I cried too easily because I wanted attention, I hid in the garage with a paper plate of pie. Grandpa found me there and handed me the corner piece because he knew I liked the crust. He did not tell me to forgive everyone. He said, "You do not have to become smaller just because they like the room quiet." So when his health started changing, it hurt to watch the family change with it. At first, they still talked about him like he was the head of the family. They said things like, "Dad built everything we have," and "Grandpa is the reason this family is strong." Those lines came out easily when other people were listening. But in daily life, when no one was taking pictures, he became a problem to move around. His wheelchair was always in the way. His medication schedule was dramatic. His meals were too specific. If he asked someone to repeat something, they acted like he was confused. If he asked a question about his own appointments, my mother answered over him. If he wanted to sit somewhere other than where they had parked him, someone sighed like he had requested a parade. The first time I really noticed how bad it had gotten, I walked into my parents' house and found Grandpa facing the television while everyone else ate lunch at the kitchen table behind him. His plate was on a TV tray, untouched, with a napkin folded too neatly beside it. He said he wasn't hungry, Elaine told me. Grandpa looked at me and said very quietly, "I said I wanted soup." Cal glanced up from his phone. At some point, comfort has to be balanced with practicality. I looked at the bowl of dry chicken and overcooked green beans on Grandpa's tray. He asked for soup, not a corporate restructuring. The room went silent. Lena rolled her eyes. My mother said, "Mia, don't start." That was always the phrase. Don't start. As if the problem began when I named it. After that, I started paying closer attention. A pill organizer on the side table had a morning compartment still full at dinner. A follow-up appointment had been rescheduled without asking Grandpa because, according to my mother, it was too much running around. A legal envelope sat half-hidden under holiday catalogs. When I walked in too quickly one afternoon, Cal was asking whether Grandpa really needed all those separate accounts at his age. My mother saw me and pushed the envelope under a stack of magazines. "Mia doesn't need to be involved," she said. If Grandpa is signing something, I said, Grandpa should understand it. Elaine gave me that patient smile she used when she wanted witnesses to think she was the reasonable one. You always assume the worst because drama gives you purpose. Grandpa did not say anything then, but his eyes followed the envelope. By Christmas week, my mother had turned the holiday into a performance. Matching dishes, name cards, candles no one was allowed to light until pictures were taken. Lena kept adjusting the lighting in the dining room and sending test shots to the shared album. The kitchen smelled like ham, cranberry sauce, pie boxes and green beans that had surrendered hours earlier. I came early because Grandpa had asked me to bring the soft gray blanket he liked. He always got cold indoors, especially when he sat still too long. I also moved one of the dining chairs away from the table so his wheelchair could fit comfortably. His name card was already there, propped against a folded napkin. Elaine noticed the empty space immediately. "Why is that chair gone?" she asked. "For Grandpa. We can take the family picture before we bring Dad in." I looked toward the living room where Grandpa was already sitting with his blanket over his knees. "Before you bring him in? He's already here." My mother pressed her lips together. Lena made a little sound through her nose and kept scrolling on her phone. Aunt Denise suddenly became very interested in arranging rolls in a basket. Grandpa heard us. Of course he heard us. People had started assuming his wheelchair had taken his hearing with it. "I'd like to sit with everyone," he said. "And you will, Dad," Elaine said too brightly. "We're just figuring out the flow." I hated that word the second she said it. Dinner started with the usual forced cheer. Frank carved the ham like he was performing surgery. Cal commented on property taxes during grace, which should have told everyone where his mind was. Tyler asked if the shared album was working because he was not seeing all the pictures. Lena told him to refresh. Grandpa sat at the table for maybe 10 minutes before my mother decided she needed a wider shot. "Dad, I'm just going to move you back a little," she said, already reaching for the handles of his chair. Grandpa's hand trembled as he reached for the brake. "I'm fine here." "It's just for the pictures," Elaine said. "Don't make that face." She rolled him backward, away from the place setting I had made for him. Not a foot. Not just enough to move around him. She pushed him all the way toward the hall opening, where he was technically still in the room but no longer part of the table. Lena lifted her phone. "That's better." The chair was blocking half the centerpiece. Cal gave a short laugh. It was starting to look like a hospital in here. Grandpa looked at the table. His plate was still there. His fork was still beside it. He said, "I am not hungry," in the hallway. Something in me went cold. I stood up and walked around the table. My voice was low because I knew if I raised it, they would use that instead of what they had done. "He asked to sit with us," I said. "Why is that a problem?" Elaine's smile hardened. "Mia, not today. Can we have one nice Christmas? He is not a decoration you move out of frame." Frank set down the carving knife. "Enough." "No," I said. "Not enough. Grandpa belongs at the table." I put one hand on the back of Grandpa's chair, steady and visible, and started rolling him forward. My mother grabbed the handle on the other side. "You are embarrassing this family," she hissed. Grandpa looked at her and said, "Elaine, let go." She did not. Frank came around the table. "You do not speak to your mother like that." I spoke to her like she was pushing an 88-year-old man into the hallway on Christmas. Lena pushed back her chair. "This is why nobody tells you anything. You always need an audience." "No," I said. "I need you to stop treating Grandpa like furniture." Cal leaned back with his arms crossed. "Maybe everyone should be careful what they say around Mia. She has a way of collecting things and twisting them later." That landed in the room strangely. Too specific. Too ready. My mother said, "Everyone can see what you're doing. You hover around Dad. Then you make yourself the hero." Grandpa's face changed. Not confusion. Recognition. "What exactly am I doing?" I asked. Lena laughed without humor. "Oh please. Nobody is fooled by the devoted granddaughter act." Tyler looked between us, uncomfortable. Aunt Denise stared at her plate. I could feel the old reflex rising in me, the reflex to soften my voice, to explain, to make everyone comfortable even while they were lying. I swallowed it. I'm not apologizing for treating Grandpa like a person, I said. Frank grabbed my arm. Not hard enough to leave a dramatic bruise, but hard enough to scare me. Hard enough to let me know he wanted the room to see he could move me if he chose to. You're done, he said. Grandpa said my name once. Mia. I tried to pull my arm back. Let go. Frank marched me toward the front door. Elaine followed, saying, You can come back when you're ready to behave. My coat and purse were still on a chair near the kitchen. My car keys were in my pocket by luck, only because I had used them to bring in Grandpa's blanket earlier. My coat, I said. Frank opened the door. Cold air hit my face and chest so sharply I took a breath like I had been slapped. You can get it later, he said. I acted like Grandpa was part of this family. His face twisted. You want to act like you're not part of this family? Fine. Then he pushed me onto the porch and shut the door. A second later, the lock clicked. I stood there without my coat, hearing muffled voices inside and one burst of laughter that may or may not have had anything to do with me. The porch light went off. That was my mother. I knew it like I knew my own name. I sat in my car with the heater running and my hands shaking over the vents. For a few minutes, I did nothing except breathe. I did not cry right away. I think I was too stunned. Then my phone started buzzing. The family group chat was named Christmas Crew, because apparently even betrayal needed a festive label. Elaine. I hope you are proud of yourself. Grandpa is upset now. Frank, you owe your mother an apology. Lena. Nobody is fooled, Mia. Cal. For everyone's sake, maybe keep conversations off text from now on. Tyler. Can everyone just calm down? Lena. We all know why she has been so attached to Grandpa lately. Elaine. After everything we have done, this is how she repays us. Frank left a voicemail. His voice started controlled, almost bored. Mia, this is your father. You need to stop this nonsense tonight. Your mother is crying, your grandfather is upset, and the entire family is embarrassed. You can either apologize like an adult or stay away, until you remember what respect looks like. There was a pause. Then his voice dropped. And don't think people don't see what you're trying to do with Arthur. I saved the voicemail. Then I screenshotted every message. Cal had accused me of collecting evidence while handing it to me in writing. I almost laughed, but it came out like a cough. I was deciding whether to drive home when a text came in from a number I did not recognize. Side door. 10 minutes. Bring your keys. Do not answer them. Quiet has a price tag. I stared at the last sentence until my eyes burned. Quiet has a price tag. That was Grandpa. Nobody else in that family talked about quiet like it was something you could overpay for. I wiped my face with the sleeve of my sweater, turned off the car and waited. At exactly 10 minutes, I walked around the side of the house. The side door opened before I knocked. Pam stood there in her winter cardigan, her mouth tight. She was Grandpa's part-time caregiver, practical and usually allergic to family drama. She had the look of someone who had seen too much and decided silence was no longer neutral. Come in quick, she whispered. The laundry area was dim and smelled like detergent and cold air. Grandpa was there in his wheelchair, the gray blanket tucked over his knees. He looked pale, exhausted, and furious in a way that made him seem more like himself than he had all night. Grandpa, I said, crouching in front of him. Are you okay? No, he said. But I am clear. Remember that. Pam closed the door behind me. Grandpa reached into the pocket of his cardigan with slow, deliberate effort. He pulled out a sealed envelope with my name written in his shaky handwriting. What is this? I asked. Insurance against the story they were always going to tell about you. My stomach dropped. Inside were copies of legal letters, a business card from Miss Evelyn Grant, and a handwritten note. If they try to make you the villain, remember they wrote the script before you spoke. I read it twice. Then I looked at him. Grandpa's eyes were tired but sharp. They think because I move slower I think slower. What have they been doing? He glanced at Pam then back at me. Leaving out pages. Pushing papers in front of me when I was tired. Telling me it was simpler. Telling your aunt and cousins that you were getting too close. Telling everyone you wanted money. Grandpa, I never asked you for anything. I know, he said. That was one of the reasons I trusted you. I looked down at the business card. Ms. Evelyn Grant, attorney. My hands were still cold. Trusted me with what? He took a breath. I changed my trust months ago. Privately. With witnesses. With competency documentation. Before tonight. Before they could say you caused it. I heard the muffled sound of dishes from the dining room. A chair scraping, Lena's laugh floating down the hall. It felt obscene that life was continuing in there, while Grandpa sat in the laundry room explaining that his own children had been trying to corner him. They said you were confused, I whispered. I heard every word. I noticed who visited when bank statements came. I noticed who asked about property taxes and never asked what I wanted for lunch. I noticed who left me facing the television while everyone talked behind me. I noticed who sighed when my chair took up space. His mouth tightened. And I noticed who brought me a blanket when they thought there was nothing in it for them. I had to stand up because crouching suddenly made me dizzy. Grandpa continued. The estate is larger than they know. Larger than most people know. I built it slowly, through trusts and property interests and companies they never bothered to understand because they thought the old man would hand them the obvious pieces. How large? He did not answer directly. Grandpa had never been careless with numbers. He said, large enough that greed stops wearing a mask. Large enough that people who call you dramatic start planning before I am gone. Pam looked at me and said softly, your grandfather asked me to document care concerns months ago. He authorized copies for Ms. Grant. And for you if needed. I felt anger move through me, but it was not the hot, reckless kind. It was colder than that. More useful. Do you want me to call Ms. Grant? I asked Grandpa. Not because I think you need permission. Because I want to make sure I am doing what you want. He nodded once. Tomorrow morning. Not tonight. Tonight you go home. Do not go back in there and scream. Be smarter than they are loud. That sentence probably saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. Because I wanted to go back to that dining room. I wanted to slap the envelope on the table and watch my mother choke on her perfect Christmas. I wanted to play Frank's voicemail next to the candles and ask Lena if the lighting was good enough for that memory. Instead, I hugged Grandpa carefully. He smelled like soap, wool, and the peppermint candy he kept in his pocket. His hand patted my shoulder twice. You did not turn me against them, he said. Do not let them tell you that. I won't. Good. Put everything in writing. That part at least I already knew how to do. I drove home without my coat, and I made a folder on my laptop titled Christmas. Then I made subfolders by date because emotion had never protected me in that family, but records had. I saved screenshots from Christmas Crew. I downloaded Frank's voicemail. I wrote down exactly what had happened while I still remembered the order, the words, the details, and the way Grandpa's hand shook when he reached for the wheel brake. The next morning, I called Ms. Grant from the number on the card. She did not sound surprised. Mr. Arthur told me I may hear from you, she said. I want to be very clear, I told her. I am not trying to take over anything. He gave me your card and asked me to call. I understand, she said. He anticipated that would be your first concern. That almost broke me. Ms. Grant explained only what she was allowed to explain over the phone. Grandpa had requested several private meetings. His competency had been evaluated and documented. The trust had been updated before Christmas. There were safeguards, oversight, and clear instructions regarding his care. She also said Grandpa wanted a family meeting in her office after Christmas, with him present, and with no one speaking for him. You should preserve all communications, she added. Already done. For the next few days, my family tried every door they had used before. My mother called 19 times. I did not answer. Frank called twice, then left another voicemail telling me I was acting like a child. Lena sent long texts about how I was dividing the family and weaponizing Grandpa's condition. Cal asked in a group thread what exactly Grandpa had said to me, which told me he was scared. I replied once. Any conversation about Grandpa's care needs to include Grandpa. Any legal discussion needs to go through his attorney. I will not discuss this over calls. Put it in writing. That made them furious. Elaine, you are hurting your grandfather by making this ugly. Me. Grandpa was hurt when you put him in the hallway. I am making it documented. Frank, watch your tone. Me, put it in writing. Lena, you have always wanted to be the victim. Me, put it in writing. He'll stop texting after that. Pam sent me copies of care notes Grandpa had authorized her to share. They were not dramatic. That made them worse. Lunch not provided until 2:15. Client requested soup. Medication reminder delayed. Morning compartment still full at 6:40 p.m. Client requested table seating for dinner. Family member stated chair blocked walkway. Client's phone unavailable for 3 hours. Found charging in kitchen drawer. Client expressed concern about documents presented without full explanation. Pam included appointment reminders, messages where my mother had canceled transport without confirming with Grandpa, and one short note that made me sit back from the screen. Client stated, "They talk like I am already gone." I also checked the shared album. Lena had uploaded a Christmas photo before everything exploded. In the picture, everyone at the table was smiling or pretending to. Candles glowed. Plates looked perfect. And in the background, just beyond Lena's shoulder, Grandpa was visible in the hallway, blanket over his knees, his place setting empty at the table. They had created their own exhibit. The meeting at Ms. Grant's office was scheduled for the following week. My mother arrived dressed like she was attending a memorial, even though Grandpa was alive and sitting right there. Frank came in with his jaw set and his shoulders squared. Lena whispered something to Cal when she saw me, then looked me up and down like she was hoping I would cry on command. Cal carried a folder and a notebook. Of course he did. Aunt Denise came last. She would not meet my eyes. Tyler came too, quiet and uncomfortable, probably because he had reacted to Lena's messages with little thumbs-up emojis, and now did not know where to put his hands. The conference room had water bottles, legal pads, a large envelope and one long table. Miss Grant had arranged the room so Grandpa sat at the head, not off in a corner. I noticed. I think Grandpa noticed too. He was wearing the blue sweater I had brought him 2 days earlier. The gray blanket was folded over his lap. Miss Grant entered with a slim folder and a calm expression that did not invite nonsense. "Mr. Arthur requested this meeting himself," she said. "He also requested that no one speak for him. If anyone interrupts my client, I will end the meeting and continue through written communication only." My mother's face tightened. Frank leaned back. "We are here because my daughter has stirred up confusion." Ms. Grant looked at him. "No. You are here because my client requested your presence." Grandpa's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Elaine folded a tissue in her lap. "Dad, before this goes any further, I want you to know we love you. Whatever Mia has made you think, we have only tried to help." I felt my pulse in my throat, but I stayed quiet. Grandpa looked at her. "I know what I think." Lena sighed. "Grandpa, nobody is saying you don't. We just think maybe you are being influenced. Mia has always had a way of making herself seem like the only decent person in the room." "That's enough," I said. Frank pointed at me. "You do not get to come in here and act righteous after poisoning an old man against his own family." Cal cleared his throat, using his reasonable voice. "Maybe the first step should be reviewing competency. For everyone's protection." Ms. Grant opened her folder. "Mr. Arthur's competency has already been evaluated and documented. More than once. These evaluations were completed before the Christmas incident." Cal blinked. Elaine's voice sharpened. "Before Christmas?" Grandpa turned his head toward her slowly. "Yes. Before you pushed me into the hallway." The room went very still. My mother started crying then. Not hard. Not grief. Controlled tears. Performance tears. "I was trying to make room," she said. I placed my phone on the conference table. "You all said I was using Grandpa," I said. "So let's talk about who only remembered him when money came up." Lena laughed nervously. "Here we go. The Mia show." I did not look at her. I unlocked my phone and opened the folder. "I am not sharing private medical details," I said. "I am not posting anything publicly. I am showing what is relevant because you accused me of manipulating him, and I am done letting you rewrite what happened." Frank scoffed. "You are unbelievable." "This is not gossip," I said. "These are your words." First, I showed the Christmas crew messages. Elaine saying Grandpa was upset because of me. Lena saying nobody was fooled by my devoted granddaughter act. Cal warning people to keep conversations off text. Frank demanding an apology. Then I played Frank's voicemail. His own voice filled the conference room. Fake calm turning into a threat. You can either apologize like an adult or stay away until you remember what respect looks like. Frank's face darkened. You recorded me? You left a voicemail. Ms. Grant said. Continue. I showed the shared album photo next. The perfect table. The candles. The empty place setting. Grandpa in the hallway. Tyler looked at the picture and slowly lowered his eyes. I showed only a few of Pam's notes, the ones Grandpa had approved for the meeting. Lunch delayed. Medication reminder missed. Client requested table seating. Client expressed concern about documents. Elaine snapped. That caregiver is exaggerating. Pam was not in the room, but her notes were calm, dated, neutral. Then I opened a screenshot Grandpa had sent Ms. Grant weeks earlier and authorized me to share. It was a text from Cal to Lena that had somehow been forwarded in a chain to Grandpa by mistake. Cal, at his age we need to simplify before he changes his mind again. Your mom needs to get him to sign while he is still having good days. Lena. Mia keeps asking questions. Cal. Then stop telling her things. She will make herself the hero and complicate the estate. Lena stared at Cal. Cal stared at the table. I just meant efficiency, he said. Grandpa let out a short breath. You always did. My mother turned on me. You stole private conversations. Ms. Grant's voice cut in. Mr. Arthur provided that exchange to my office. He had access to it because it was sent to him in a family message chain. Frank slapped his hand on the table. Blood should matter more than paperwork. Grandpa looked at him for a long moment. Blood did not get me back to the table. No one spoke. Then Arthur did. His voice was not loud. Did not need to be. Mia did not make me see you, he said. She was simply the only one who did not ask me to close my eyes. I heard every sigh. I heard every joke. I heard every time you talked about me like I was a delay between you and what you wanted. Do not confuse my chair with my mind. Elaine whispered. Dad. He lifted one hand and she stopped. I wanted to know who would help me when they thought there was nothing to gain. I got my answer. Ms. Grant slid the large envelope forward but did not open it all the way. The trust was amended before the Christmas dinner incident. These changes were initiated by Mr. Arthur privately. They include safeguards, independent oversight, and clear instructions for his care. Elaine and Frank no longer have decision-making authority regarding Mr. Arthur's estate or care directives. Certain relatives will receive symbolic distributions as specifically stated, which indicates they were considered and intentionally limited. Mia has been assigned a fiduciary role tied to Mr. Arthur's care plan and the trust's terms. That role is subject to oversight. It is not unchecked control. Lena's face went pale. Symbolic distributions? Cal leaned forward despite himself. Can we clarify the asset structure? There it was. After all of that, after Grandpa said he had been hurt and ignored and treated like a burden, Cal's first instinct was structure. Lena looked at Ms. Grant. So what is the actual number? I turned to my sister. That was your first question after hearing Grandpa say you hurt him. Her mouth opened then closed. Ms. Grant did not give them the number casually. She explained that the estate involved multiple entities, property interests and long-held assets, and that anyone with a lawful right to information would receive it through proper channels. But enough came out for the room to understand the scale. Not the family house. Not a handful of rentals. A portfolio built over decades and protected through a trust structure most of them had never bothered to understand. A portfolio worth more than $1 billion in total assets. My mother's tears stopped. That was how I knew they weren't real. Frank stood up halfway. This is insane. Elaine is your daughter. Lena is your granddaughter. You are going to let Mia walk away with everything because of one bad dinner. Grandpa's eyes hardened. It was not one dinner. It was the dinner where you ran out of room to hide yourselves. Elaine looked at me with a hatred so clean it almost did not look human. You did this, she said. No, I said. You did. I just stopped apologizing for noticing. Aunt Denise started crying then, quietly. Not like my mother. Denise's tears looked ashamed. Ms. Grant asked if she needed a moment. Denise shook her head. Then she looked at Grandpa. I saw him in the hallway, I said to her before I could stop myself. Didn't you? Denise covered her mouth. Denise, Grandpa said. Answer. She nodded. I saw. I didn't want to get in the middle. You were in the room, I said. That was the middle. She flinched, but she did not argue. I should have spoken up, Denise said. I saw more than I said. It did not fix anything. It did not make her brave retroactively. But it cracked the story my mother had been trying to build. Tyler caught me near the elevator after the meeting. His face was red and he could barely look at me. I should have asked you before I picked a side, he said. I was tired enough that kindness took effort, but I tried. You did pick a side, I said. I appreciate the apology, but I need you to understand that. He nodded. I do now. I am sorry. Don't apologize to me because the money is real, I said. Apologize to Grandpa because the picture was real. His eyes filled. I will. Some relatives never apologized. They adjusted. That is different. Over the next week, my phone turned into a museum of panic. The group chat exploded again, but the tone had changed. Some relatives still called me selfish. Others privately asked for copies of messages. A cousin who had not visited Grandpa in 8 months suddenly wanted to know if he needed anything. Lena sent a long message about family healing that somehow included the phrase, fair distribution 3 times. Cal did not message me directly again, but I heard he told people I had manipulated legal technicalities. Frank texted once, your mother is devastated. Hope it was worth it. I did not answer. Elaine waited 2 days, then sent the message I knew was coming. I hope the money was worth losing your family. I stared at it while sitting beside Grandpa at his kitchen table. Not in a hallway. Not pointed toward a television. At the table, where his soup was in front of him and his blanket was over his knees. I typed 1 sentence. I defended him before I knew about the money. You attacked me before you knew you were losing it. Then I muted the thread. Grandpa's care changed after that. Not magically. Not perfectly. But legally, practically, and immediately. His phone stayed with him. His medication schedule was handled by people who documented it. His meals were served where he wanted to sit. Any discussion about documents went through Ms. Grant. My parents could no longer corner him with papers and call it helping. If they visited, there were boundaries. If they broke them, the visit ended. The first Sunday dinner after everything came out was quiet in a way that did not feel like punishment. I brought soup. Pam made coffee. Grandpa ate slowly, with his napkin tucked under his hand because his fingers shook more now. He asked for pepper twice. I gave it to him both times without acting like he had inconvenienced me. At one point, he looked at the empty chair across from him and said, Your mother thinks I chose money over blood. Did you? He looked at me like I had asked whether rain was wet. I chose dignity over appetite, he said. Theirs. Not mine. I smiled even though my throat hurt. I will not pretend the trust fixed what happened. Money does not make a locked door warmer. It does not erase the sound of my grandfather saying he was not hungry in the hallway. It does not make a mother love you better or a father less willing to use his hands when his authority fails. And I am not celebrating the inheritance like a prize. What Grandpa gave me is responsibility, oversight, paperwork, meetings, boundaries, the legal authority to help protect him because the people who wanted control proved they could not be trusted with it. My family still says I exposed them for money. They still tell anyone who will listen that I turned Grandpa against them. But they said that before they knew the trust was changed. They said I was greedy while I was sitting in a cold car without my coat, saving the messages they were sending me. I used to think being called too emotional meant I had failed to stay calm enough to be believed. Now I think it meant I was reacting to things everyone else had agreed to tolerate. Grandpa eats at the table now. That is not revenge. That is the bare minimum they tried to deny him. As for splitting anything with the people who humiliated him, I will not do it. The trust is Arthur's decision, not a tip jar for relatives who got caught. They received exactly what he chose to leave them, with exactly the amount of trust they earned. For the first time in my life, I did not confuse silence with peace. I chose the person they tried to hide, and I would make the same choice again. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.